Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Willow Tate stood motionless on the polished marble floor of the Quartermaine living room, the late afternoon light streaming through the large windows, creating long shadows on the furniture she had once aspired to call home. The heavy click of metal against her wrists felt bizarre, colder, and more conclusive than any quarrel she had ever had with Michael or confrontation with Nina. Detective Dante Falconeri's voice was firm but tinged with sadness as he read the accusations, the words blurring together until only one line stood out in her mind. Arrested for Kai Taylor's murder. The room erupted. Michael surged forward, his face a mask of shock and rage, screaming that there had to be a mistake. Tracy Quartermaine's loud voice pierced through the turmoil, demanding explanations, as young Wiley and Amelia clung to each other near the doorway, their wide eyes fixed on the mother figure who had reared them through such adversity. Willow breathed in short gasps. She had anticipated issues when the truth about her past surfaced, but nothing prepared her for the cold steel of handcuffs and the public humiliation of being led away in front of the family she had worked so hard to maintain. The journey to this point had been long and complicated, weaved through years of secrets, alliances and betrayals that defined life in Port Charles. Willow had come to town as a young lady looking for stability after a difficult childhood, and she found purpose first as a nurse and later as a mother figure to Michael's children. Her marriage to Michael Corinthos had originally appeared to be the safe harbor she sought, an opportunity to build something meaningful after the losses that tormented her early years. However, the shadows of her own decisions, the affairs, the falsehoods told to shield the children, and the hazardous games played with strong men, had never completely faded. It all started weeks ago with the discovery of Kai Taylor's death along the docks, a young man whose quiet presence in Port Charles had prompted more questions than answers. Kai had performed odd jobs along the waterfront, kept to himself, and ran across Willow during one of her late-night hospital visits during a particularly difficult shift. Their chats had been brief and almost accidental at first, but something in his eyes reminded her of her previous feelings of isolation. She offered him guidance, a meal or two, and nothing else. Or so she stated when the questions began. The study proceeded slowly at first. Dante and Anna Devane cobbled together security footage, phone records, and witness testimony to create a different picture. Willow was spotted near the docks the night Kai went missing, according to a blurry video. A sequence of text messages found on a discarded phone implied heated fights. The most devastating discovery was that Kai had discovered something about Willow's past. A sealed record from her adolescence concerning an act she had buried so deeply that she had almost convinced herself it never occurred. The stunning revelation occurred after a private interview at the PCPD. Dante placed the paperwork on the table between them, his demeanor intentionally bland. Willow had never expected to see these documents again. A juvenile case from years before she arrived in Port Charles, involving a young man who died in mysterious circumstances following a conflict at a group home. Willow had been present. She'd been questioned. The investigation had been resolved with no charges, and the death was considered accidental. But Kai, it turned out, had been looking through old archives for his own purposes, and the material he discovered threatened to revive wounds Willow had spent her life trying to close. "You knew," Dante replied calmly. "You knew he had the files." Willow's hands trembled in denial. She emphasized that the meeting at the docks was only about offering Kai a job lead. She stated that the texts were misunderstandings. She swore she had never intended to cause harm. However, the evidence continued to accumulate. A bloodied scarf discovered near the body matched one she had worn the previous week. A partial fingerprint found on a discarded bottle of pills connected her to the crime scene. The final piece emerged when a witness, someone who had been silent out of fear, came forward, claiming to have overheard Willow threaten Kai if he ever revealed what he knew. The arrest unfolded with the dramatic accuracy that Port Charles had grown to expect. Willow had spent the afternoon at the Quartermaine mansion, arguing with Michael about parenting arrangements and their growing distance. Tracy had been present, sharp-eyed and spiteful, still nursing grudges from previous confrontations over family allegiance. When Dante and two uniformed officers arrived, the talk ended abruptly. Willow's immediate inclination was to flee, but the exits were closed. The shackles tightened around her wrists with a quiet finality that seemed to echo throughout the home. Michael's reaction was quick and intense. He demanded to hear the accusations, refused to believe the evidence, and accused the cops of railroading the mother of his children. Tracy's reaction was more measured. She kept a close eye on Willow, as if to determine whether this development was in the family's best interests in the long run. A heartbroken nanny carried the children away, but not before Amelia cried for her mother, the sound of which nearly broke Willow's composure. At the station, the formal booking process dispelled any last illusions of control. Photographs, fingerprints, the removal of personal belongings. Willow sat in the holding cell, the fluorescent lights harsh on her pale face, repeating every decision that had brought her here. She recalled the early days with Michael, the calm nights spent envisioning a future that now seemed unattainable. She recalled Nina's difficult presence in their lives, as well as the rivalries that had previously defined so many of their relationships. She thought about the children, whose stability she had vowed to safeguard above all else. The inquiry that ensued was unrelenting. Dante pressed for information about Kai's death that night. Anna watched from the sidelines, her acute mind noting every hesitation and contradiction. Willow's counsel eventually arrived, a sharp-tongued attorney selected by Sonny Corinthos himself, but even he was surprised by the weight of the evidence. The key was the juvenile file that had been sealed. If the prior case could be reopened and linkages made between the previous incident and Kai's death, the prosecution's case would be practically complete. Outside the station, the news spread quickly around Port Charles. Carly Corinthos received Michael's call and instantly mobilized resources, determined to safeguard the children and, by implication, the remaining family unit. Sonny's reaction was more measured. He'd seen enough bogus allegations and true crimes to understand that the truth was often somewhere in the between. Jason Morgan, the calm observer, merely listened as Michael detailed the scenario, providing no judgment but making it clear that he would support the family if necessary. Nina's arrival at the station the next morning provided an additional layer of difficulty. Nina, Willow's former toughest enemy, had recently morphed into something more akin to an uneasy ally. She demanded to see Willow, used every connection she had, and eventually arranged a quick meeting. The two women faced each other across the glass barrier, years of shared history weighing heavily on them. "I didn't do this," Willow muttered. "You have to believe me." Nina's look was impenetrable. "Belief is not the issue right now. Survival is. The kids need you. Michael requires answers. And if you haven't told the lawyers anything yet, now is the time." The conversation ended without a resolution. Willow returned to her cage, the walls closing in as darkness fell. Sleep proved impossible. Every creak in the structure, every distant sound, told her that she no longer had her independence. She remembered the children, the bedtime stories she'd miss, and the tiny routines that had given her days purpose. She remembered Michael's expression when the shackles clicked shut, a mix of love and betrayal that had flashed across his features. Days turned into a week of legal maneuvering. The bail was placed high, higher than Willow could handle alone. Michael organized the finances despite his own counsel's advice, anxious to bring her home even as the evidence accumulated. The hearing was tense. The prosecutor described the case with clinical precision. Surveillance, physical evidence, and a history that could no longer be hidden. Willow's attorney responded by questioning the investigation's integrity, the witnesses' veracity, and the likelihood of evidence being placed by someone with a grudge. The court listened carefully and then granted bail with tight conditions. Willow went out of the station into a swarm of cameras and shouted questions, Michael's arm around her shoulders offering the only respite from the chaos. The journey back to the mansion was quiet. Wiley and Amelia waited at the door, their relief obvious despite realizing the gravity of the situation. Willow hugged them warmly, saying them everything would be fine, despite the looming uncertainty of the next trial. In the stillness of the guest room that night, Michael finally asked the question that had been hanging between them since the arrest. "Is there anything I should know? Is there anything from before?" Willow responded slowly, the words weighty with years of silence. She told him about the group home, the confrontation, and the young guy who died that night. She described the fear that drove her to leave that existence and her ambition to construct something better. She revealed that Kai's discovery worried her, that she confronted him, and that the debate had become heated. But she did not admit to murder. The truth, she argued, was more complicated than the evidence indicated. Michael listened without interruption. When she finished, he sat in silence for a while before holding her hand. "We will fight this. Together. For the children. For us." The weeks that followed became a delicate balancing act. Willow remained under home arrest, with an ankle monitor tracking her movements and a legal team working hard to contest the prosecution's case. New evidence emerged, including an unnoticed surveillance camera from a nearby warehouse, and a second witness who claimed to have seen someone else at the docks that night. The defense pressed aggressively. The prosecution investigated deeper into Willow's background. Throughout it all, the residents of Port Charles observed and judged. Some witnessed a woman fighting for her family. Others saw a lady whose long-held secrets had now surfaced. Tracy stayed vigilant, her devotion to the courtemane name superseding personal feelings. Carly gave quiet support, noting parallels between Willow's fight and her own battles to defend those she loved. Nina continued to visit, serving as a reminder that loyalties in Port Charles can shift unexpectedly. Willow stood alone in the children's room one evening, watching them sleep while rain fell on the mansion's windows. The handcuffs were removed, but the weight of the charges remained. The stunning revelation about her past had changed everything, forcing her to confront both the person she had once been and the person she still wished to become. The trial date loomed. The truth, whatever it was, waited to be revealed in the broad light of a courtroom. For the time being, she clung to the tenuous hope that the family she had created would be able to weather the storm. Michael's peaceful presence downstairs, the children's steady breathing, the distant noises of a family going on despite the chaos. These were the anchors she relied on. The arrest had taken away the last of her carefully planned defenses. What remained was the fight ahead, the drive to establish her innocence, and the dubious hope of a future that may still be salvaged from the ruins of long-buried truths. Nothing in Port Charles remained concealed forever. Willow Tate had learned that lesson the hard way, with the metal of the shackles still causing phantom sensations against her wrists. The path ahead would be lengthy, with never-ending questions and heavier stakes than ever. But, for the first time in years, she faced them without the protection of denial. The truth, however complicated, was the only option left. That reluctance turned out to be her biggest error. Detective Chase quickly notified Anna that forensic experts had proven that someone had entered evidence lockers with security credentials linked to hospital administrative systems. Even more alarming, the surveillance timestamps matched Willow's work schedule. Still, it wasn't enough to warrant an arrest. Then another witness stepped up. The witness claimed to have spotted Willow carrying a sealed evidence envelope into the hospital parking garage before meeting an unidentified person. Everything abruptly changed. Anna assembled her team for an emergency meeting. "We're not arresting her because of rumors," Anna insisted. "We're arresting her because we now have enough probable cause to ask serious questions." News of the probe circulated through Port Charles faster than anyone imagined. Nina Reeves couldn't believe what she heard. "No," she insisted. Drew Kane responded differently, saying, "Someone is setting her up." He softly wondered if Willow had been hiding something from everyone all along. Michael Corinthos was stunned. Despite everything that had happened between them recently, he never expected Willow to become the subject of a criminal investigation. He tried to find her before the police arrived. Unfortunately, he came too late. Several police vans parked outside General Hospital. Doctors, nurses, and patients all stopped what they were doing. Everyone was watching. Anna stepped out of her car with calm purpose. Willow understood immediately why they were there. Her face had lost all color. "Willow Corinthos," Anna began professionally, "I need you to come with us." The hospital personnel exchanged apprehensive expressions. "What's this about?" Willow asked gently. Anna maintained eye contact. "We have concerns about evidence tampering and obstruction of an ongoing investigation." Willow looked around urgently. She scanned the crowd until her gaze met Michael's. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Michael approached carefully. "There must have been a mistake," Anna said, remaining compassionate yet strong. Willow considered running. "You can discuss everything downtown." She thought about it for a little moment. She instantly realized that doing so would only make things worse. Instead, she gradually extended her hands. A stunned stillness crept around the parking lot. Nobody expected what occurred next. Anna nodded to one of the officers. Willow's wrists were carefully handcuffed by the officer. Gasps resonated throughout the audience. Several nurses covered their lips with amazement. Carly came just in time to see the terrible scene. "No!" she shouted as she pushed through the mob. Michael quickly attempted to calm her. "This isn't helping." Carly ignored him. "There must be another explanation." Anna spoke respectfully. "If she's innocent, this investigation will prove it." Willow said nothing. Her look reflected a mix of fear, sorrow, and tiredness. The cops led her to the waiting van, as photographers who had somehow learnt about the arrest began capturing shots from across the street. Within minutes, social media had exploded. Rumors travel faster than facts. Some suspected Willow had been secretly working for Sidwell. Others believed that she was protecting Michael. Even more absurd ideas claimed she was framed by someone wanting vengeance. Willow eventually spoke up in the interrogation chamber. Anna leaned closer. "I didn't destroy the evidence." "Then tell me why your credentials appear throughout the investigation." Willow hesitated. She realized that stating the truth would reveal another hazardous secret. If she stayed mute, prosecutors may construe that as guilt. Jason arrived at the police station soon after. He asked permission to visit Willow. Diane Miller, Willow's attorney, quickly intervened after her initial denial. The expert lawyer carefully analyzed every document gathered by the detectives. Diane noticed something right away. One timestamp appeared impossible. According to official documents, Willow allegedly entered a secure evidence room at the exact same time that hospital security cameras captured her treating a patient. The disagreement was substantial. Diane grinned slightly. Someone tampered with these records. Anna investigated the disparity herself. She refused to disregard evidence solely because it damaged the case. If electronic files had been manipulated, the probe would have grown far beyond anyone's expectations. Meanwhile, Brennan got confidential information indicating that the digital data had moved through servers tied to an unknown outside group. This did not happen at random. Someone had purposefully directed investigators to Willow. The question becomes why. Willow returned to the station and felt she could no longer be silent. She acknowledged to visiting the warehouse months ago. However, she maintained she went there to look for information after receiving anonymous concerns that someone close to her family was in danger. She never expected anyone to notice she was there. Anna carefully matched Willow's statement to the available evidence. Surprisingly, some specifics matched facts that investigators had purposefully hidden from the public. That boosted Willow's credibility. However, unsolved questions remained. Who issued the anonymous warnings? Who placed the digital evidence? Who benefited from Willow's arrest? Jason discreetly explored on his own. His quest eventually took him to an abandoned office rented under a fictitious name. Inside, he discovered computer equipment that could remotely access security databases. Whoever used the system had significant technical knowledge. Before Jason could investigate everything, someone entered the building. A struggle ensued. The unknown figure fled, leaving only a damaged laptop. Despite being substantially destroyed, the hard disk still contained bits of previously erased contents. Spinelli quickly offered to recover the missing information. Hours later, he made an unexpected breakthrough. The internet trail proved that someone had copied Willow's hospital credentials weeks before the evidence was tampered with. Her identity had essentially been stolen. Diane quickly filed motions disputing every piece of technological evidence that prosecutors planned to utilize. At the same time, Anna directed investigators to halt any further charges until forensic professionals finished an independent evaluation. Willow remained in detention overnight while court proceedings continued. Those hours seemed forever. She was more concerned with her children, family, and the damage done to her reputation. Across Port Charles, reactions were split. Some claimed Willow's arrest revealed a darker side she had hidden all along. Others claimed she was the latest victim of a complex scheme aimed at those related to the Corinthos family. Nina refused to exit the courthouse. Despite their complex connection, she couldn't abandon Willow at this crisis. Michael also remained nearby. The pain on his face revealed how radically their lives had changed. Regardless of their recent arguments, Seeing Willow in handcuffs destroyed something within him. The next morning, Anna personally informed Willow that new evidence had emerged. Willow looked up with hope. "Does this indicate you believe me?" Anna responded honestly. "It means I'm willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads." These statements provided a glimmer of hope. Spinelli quickly accomplished another recovery from the damaged laptop. This revelation transformed everything. A covert video recording captured an anonymous individual logging into hospital databases and specifically picking Willow's credentials. Even more importantly, the individual admitted accepting compensation for framing her. Although the suspect's face remained disguised beneath a hood, police were ultimately able to prove Willow had been targeted. Anna immediately launched a statewide hunt for the mystery hacker. Diane sought Willow's immediate release, pending further investigation. Prosecutors reluctantly agreed that Willow's case had become significantly weaker than previously thought. Willow caressed her hurting wrists as officers released her handcuffs, emotionally overwhelmed by what had occurred. She went out of the police station, surrounded by family members who waited outside. Michael was the first to step forward. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Then he simply remarked, "Let's go home." Despite her liberation, Willow realized that her horror wasn't ended. Someone powerful had devised a complex strategy to end her life. Someone knew where she had been, what secrets she kept, and how to use the evidence against her. Most terrifyingly, the person was still free. As Anna reopened the inquiry from a completely different angle, Jason accelerated his own search for the mastermind, confident that the plot was considerably larger than anyone realized. Every response raised another inquiry, every hint revealed another layer of deception, and Willow's humiliating arrest eventually became the first step toward uncovering a much more dangerous enemy, hidden in plain sight within Port Charles.